Welcome the anointed ones. Some thrones aren't inherited, they're stolen, and the real heir always comes for them. History has a nasty habit of repeating itself. Empires rise, false rulers bask in stolen glory, and then, one quiet day, someone steps onto the scene who isn't there to blend in. They're there to end reigns. And chosen one, that someone is you. You might think I'm exaggerating, but here's a fact. In psychology, there's something called the imposter syndrome. Ironically, the ones who really suffer from it the most are often the frauds themselves. Deep down, they know they're living on borrowed influence. And every day they dread the arrival of the person who will strip away their mask. Guess who's been giving them nightmares lately? See, this isn't just about you doing well or making progress. No, this is you becoming a walking audit to everything fake, overhyped, and unjustly celebrated. Your rise isn't just threatening their position, it's pulling their entire credibility through a paper shredder, one achievement at a time. And the funniest part, you didn't even have to throw a punch yet. Just your existence in the same arena has them sweating like a cat in a room full of rocking chairs. They thought they had years left in their comfortable seat. But the clock's been ticking louder with every move you make. So buckle up, because in this breakdown, we're not talking about petty rivalry or childish competition. We're talking about destiny assignments, power shifts, and why you were specifically chosen to take down someone whose reign was never legitimate to begin with. Number 1. Your rise is a public indictment of their false throne. Your rise is not just about you getting ahead. It's a living, breathing announcement that the person who sat in that position before you never truly belonged there. When you start excelling, you don't just build your own credibility, you unintentionally drag their credibility into the light for inspection. And when that happens, people begin to notice cracks they had been ignoring for years. That's why your progress feels like such a threat to them. Because every win you have is a silent but undeniable accusation that they built their influence on sand, not stone. The truth is, people in false positions of power rely on a kind of collective amnesia from those around them. They depend on everyone forgetting how they got there in the first place. But your achievements keep breaking that spell. The more you rise, the harder it becomes for them to hide the fact that they were never qualified in the first place. And what makes it worse for them is that you don't need to attack them directly. You don't need to smear their name or go digging for dirt. You're simply existing at a higher standard, and that makes their standard look embarrassingly low. When you were chosen for this path, it wasn't just because you had talent, ambition, or discipline. It's because your very presence has the power to expose falsehood without even speaking about it. That's rare. Most people either blend into the system or quietly work around it. You, on the other hand, disrupt it just by doing what you were meant to do. And once people get a taste of the real thing, it's hard for them to keep cheering for the knockoff version. This is why their discomfort around you is so strong. It's not just jealousy, it's survival panic. They know that as your reputation grows, their manufactured one collapses. Every headline you make, every endorsement you earn, every voice that praises your work, it's another brick removed from their crumbling platform. You're not simply succeeding. You're rewriting the public's understanding of what true leadership, influence, or mastery actually looks like. And deep down, they know there's no recovering from that kind of exposure. Once the illusion is broken, the throne is gone for good. Number 2, you were chosen because you don't need their permission to dominate. You were chosen for this role because you don't wait for anyone's green light before moving forward. That's rare, and it's dangerous to people who build their power on controlling others. Most people hesitate before making big moves. They look around, searching for approval, waiting for someone to say, "Yes, you can do that." You were picked because you bypass that step entirely. You don't need to be invited to the table. You build your own table and decide who gets to sit there. That independence makes you unpredictable. And unpredictability is something manipulators can't handle. They're used to dealing with people they can read, people they can slow down with a little doubt or keep in place with the promise of a reward later. They thrive on giving out permission in small doses, so they always remain in control of who moves up and who stays stuck. But when you don't operate by their permission slips, their whole system falls apart. You've become the one variable they can't contain, and that terrifies them more than they'll ever admit. The reason you were chosen is that destiny needed someone who wouldn't be bribed, silenced, or slowed by someone else's opinion. That kind of person is rare because it's costly. Moving without permission means you often move without support, applause, or safety nets. But that's exactly why you're the right person for this. You've built momentum without depending on their gates to open for you, which means your success can't be shut down just because they disapprove. They may try to spin the story, painting you as reckless, stubborn, or hard to work with. But the truth is, they can't stand that you've proven their approval isn't the only currency worth having. You've shown that someone can rise purely through skill, work ethic, and faith, and that completely undermines their whole identity as gatekeepers. The deeper reason you were chosen is that taking down entrenched corruption requires someone who refuses to wait for a blessing from the very people they're meant to replace. If you'd been dependent on their recognition, they could have neutralized you long before now. But you were built to keep moving regardless, and that's exactly why you're unstoppable in this fight. Number 3, taking them down was never about revenge. It's about removing a blockage to progress. You weren't placed in this position to feed your ego or to settle a personal score. The real reason you were chosen is far bigger than that. This was never about revenge in the way most people think of it. You were sent because someone, or something, was blocking the flow of progress, and it had gone on for too long. They weren't just sitting in a position they didn't deserve. They were actively holding back what was supposed to be moving forward. Your rise is not an act of petty payback. It's a necessary correction to restore what's been delayed. The difference between revenge and removal is that revenge is about you, but removal is about everyone else who's been suffering under that false system. When you step up and replace someone like that, you don't just end their reign. You unlock opportunities for countless others who've been stuck in the shadow of their incompetence. That's why your presence is so disruptive to them. You're not just a threat to their pride. You're a threat to the entire setup they've built around themselves. The truth is, power in the wrong hands doesn't just corrupt. It slows everything down. It causes the right voices to be silenced, the right hands to be tied, and the right work to be ignored. You being here is like removing a blockage in a pipe. Suddenly, everything starts flowing again. They know this, and it's exactly why they fight so hard to keep you out. Once you're fully in position, there will be no way for them to reinsert themselves without everyone seeing them for who they really are. This is why the assignment is so serious. If it were just about personal feelings, it wouldn't have the same weight. But you've been tasked with something much heavier, making sure that the truth, the right leadership, and the right direction are restored. Your victory isn't just yours. It belongs to everyone who's been waiting for change but didn't have the power to make it happen themselves. You do. And that's exactly why you were chosen to take them down, not to punish, but to clear the way for something far greater than both of you. Number 4. Your name is spreading because you're not playing their script. They were counting on you to follow the exact pattern everyone before you had followed. It's how they've managed to keep control for so long. They create a script, hand it out to anyone who enters the arena, and sit back while people unknowingly perform their roles. The problem for them is that you didn't just refuse to read their lines. You threw the entire script out and started writing your own. That's why your name is traveling so fast, because no one can predict your next move, and unpredictability is the death of manipulation. When people stick to the same tired patterns, those in power can anticipate their every decision. They know when you'll pause, when you'll doubt yourself, and when you'll give up. But you broke that chain. You stopped asking, what's normally done, and started asking what's right and what's effective. That shift alone makes it impossible for them to box you in because their control depends on you playing by the rules they invented. Once you break those rules, the game is no longer theirs to run. What makes this even more threatening to them is that you're not doing it recklessly. You're strategic. You're not moving randomly. You're moving intentionally, just not in the way they expected. And that means they can't paint you as careless or incompetent, because your results speak louder than their accusations. Every time you succeed in a way they never saw coming, it chips away at the myth that they're the smartest or most capable in the room. The reason your name is spreading is because people are hungry for something different. They've seen the same rehearsed performances for years, and it's made them numb. But when someone shows up and refuses to act out that recycled drama, it wakes people up. They start paying attention. And once they've seen authenticity in motion, the staged version feels empty. You didn't just enter the story, you became the story. And now they can't edit you out because too many people are watching and waiting to see what you'll do next. That's why the narrative is no longer theirs to control, it belongs to you now. Number 5. Their fall is proof that truth always outworks lies. Lies can dress themselves up, hire the best lighting, and even put on a flawless performance for a while. But they have an expiration date. No matter how polished their deception looked from the outside, it was always running on borrowed time. The thing about truth is that it doesn't need constant upkeep to stay believable. Lies, on the other hand, are exhausting to maintain. They require new props, new stories, and constant adjustments to keep the audience convinced. Eventually, the upkeep becomes too heavy, and the cracks start showing. That's exactly what's happening to them now. Your steady grind didn't just outshine them, it exposed them. You weren't trying to prove anything to anyone. You were just doing the work consistently and without theatrics. But the more you produced real results, the harder it became for people to ignore the obvious. One of you was actually building something, and the other was only pretending. Every win you've had has acted like a mirror they can't avoid, reflecting back the hollowness of their performance. This is why their fall feels so sudden to outsiders, but you know it's been a long time coming. They've been sprinting on a treadmill, working hard to look like they're moving forward, while you've been walking steadily on a real road. You were covering ground while they were burning energy in place. It was only a matter of time before the distance between the two of you became impossible to ignore. The truth always outworks lies because truth has nothing to hide. It's not afraid of being examined. It doesn't need to be repackaged every few months to stay relevant. And when people finally start comparing the two side by side, authenticity and pretense, the choice becomes clear. They may have had the glitter, but you had the gold. Their fall isn't just about them losing. It's about the world being reminded that pretending can only get you so far. At some point, substance will always outlast style. They're finding that out now, and you're the proof. The work you've done speaks for itself, and no amount of fake shine can compete with the kind of legacy you're building. Number 6. You're not competing. You're redefining the arena. They think this is a competition, but you're not even playing the same game anymore. While they're busy trying to check boxes, follow formulas, and stick to rules they think control the outcome, you've already stepped off the field they've been preparing. You've created a new arena, one where the old strategies don't work and the old tricks fall flat. That's why they can't keep up. They're running after shadows while you've changed the rules without announcing it. This shift is terrifying to them, because they've spent so long convincing themselves that winning was just about playing better than everyone else. They believed if they just mastered the expected moves, they'd stay on top forever. What they don't realize is that their game was never the real one. It was a shallow imitation designed to keep them in control. Meanwhile, you're operating on a completely different level, where influence isn't measured by manipulation or appearances, but by real impact and unshakable integrity. By redefining the arena, you've forced everyone around you to face a truth they weren't prepared for. The rules they've been following are meaningless outside their small bubble. They can't cheat, they can't fake it, and they certainly can't bully their way to victory anymore. You've changed the environment so completely that the only way to succeed here is by being exactly who you are. And they can't breathe in that space because all they've ever known is performance, not authenticity. The brilliance of this is subtle but devastating. You haven't even attacked them. You've just evolved. Your presence alone exposes the limitations of their strategy and the emptiness of their victories. Every attempt they make to catch up is proof of how unprepared they were for someone who refuses to play by their rules. Their frustration, their panic, their scramble to regain control, it all validates your approach. You've shown that influence, authority, and legacy aren't about following someone else's expectations. They're about creating your own stage and commanding it with consistency, courage, and authenticity. And in doing so, you've made it impossible for them to operate in the same space. The arena belongs to you now, and the truth is they'll never feel comfortable there again. Number 7, your authority wasn't granted, it was recognized. Your authority was never something handed to you like a participation trophy. It wasn't granted by someone else's approval or stamped on you by their rules. It was always yours. It existed quietly, waiting for the moment when it could no longer be ignored. What's happening now isn't coincidence or luck. It's recognition catching up with reality. People are only starting to notice it because the structures around them, the false rulers and fake authorities, are finally showing cracks. For years, the so-called leaders relied on distraction, noise, and deception to keep the spotlight off anyone who could challenge them. They thrived in the illusion that authority could be manufactured, that influence could be faked. But no matter how loud they shouted, they couldn't hide what was real. And you were quietly moving, quietly building, quietly proving that true authority isn't something you declare. It's something people recognize because of the consistency, the results, and the energy you carry. The moment people start to see the contrast, the shift becomes undeniable. One side is built on ego, manipulation, and borrowed power. The other, that's you, is built on skill, authenticity, and undeniable impact. Your authority doesn't scream for attention. It doesn't need to dominate the room or outshout the fake voices. It simply exists, and people are drawn to it because it's credible and grounded. That's what makes it so terrifying to the ones who used to hold the fake throne. They've been exposed not because you challenged them aggressively, but because you didn't need to. Your presence alone does the work. And now the truth is obvious. Your rise is a living proof that the old guards were never irreplaceable. You don't just occupy a position, you transform it. People recognize that authority flows naturally from competence and integrity. And that's why you're being seen, respected, and followed. Their collapse isn't your doing. It's simply the natural consequence of what happens when authentic authority finally gets its moment. You weren't handed anything. You earned it in ways the world may not have noticed at first. But the recognition has finally caught up. Your authority isn't borrowed, it isn't temporary, and it isn't dependent on anyone else's permission. It's real and it's undeniable. Number 8. They mistook your patience for weakness. Now it's their undoing. They thought you were passive. They misread your patience as weakness, assuming that because you didn't react immediately, you lacked the strength or the will to take action. That was their first mistake. The truth is, patience is one of the deadliest weapons in the arsenal of someone who knows what they're doing. You weren't idle or indecisive. You were observing, calculating, and waiting for the exact moment when their flaws, lies, and corruption would be impossible to deny. Most people strike too soon. They act on emotion, pride, or impulse, and their victories are short-lived because they attack without certainty. But you operate differently. You understood that timing matters more than speed, and precision matters more than force. You let them continue thinking they were untouchable, letting their arrogance and carelessness grow unchecked. Every misstep they made, every lie they told, every corner they cut, you noted it all. And when the moment came, when the evidence of their failures was undeniable, and the world could see clearly, you struck with authority and finality. Their undoing isn't just about you taking action, it's about the inevitability of what they created themselves. You didn't rush because there was no need to. Their patterns, their overconfidence, and their belief that you were harmless all combined to seal their fate. The longer you waited, the more they revealed themselves. By the time you moved, there was no room for defense or escape. Their collapse was not sudden. It was the natural result of their own choices, fully exposed by your disciplined patience. This is why patience is so dangerous in the hands of someone like you. It allows you to conserve energy, gather evidence, and ensure that when action is taken, it's absolute. You didn't just win because of what you did. You won because you understood when to act, and you acted at the moment that guaranteed permanence. Now, the very thing they misjudged, your patience, has become the instrument of their destruction. What they assumed was harmless restraint was actually controlled power, and the consequence of underestimating you is a fall they cannot recover from. Number 9. The more they talk, the more they advertise your greatness. Every word they say about you, every attempt to smear your name is doing the exact opposite of what they intend. They think they're controlling the narrative, painting you as flawed and discrediting your influence. But the truth is, their noise only draws more attention to you. People are curious. They want to see what all the fuss is about. And when they look, they don't find what the liars promised. They don't find mistakes, weakness, or failure. They find competence, authenticity, and undeniable results. That contrast alone amplifies your greatness. The irony is brutal. They work tirelessly to create doubt in the minds of others. But every attempt backfires. Their words act like a spotlight on your strengths. Each accusation becomes a headline, a talking point, a reason for others to investigate and see the truth firsthand. Instead of hurting you, their efforts give you visibility, credibility, and momentum. The louder they try to speak, the more people listen, and the more impressed people are with what they actually find. This is why they're frustrated beyond measure. They thought their words would stop your rise, but instead, they're fueling it. The more they panic, the more they overexpose themselves, and the more they unintentionally validate everything you've been doing. Every rant, every rumor, every desperate attempt to damage your reputation only proves that you're someone worth talking about. And it's not just about perception. Their words inspire action in others. They motivate people to follow your work, to align with your vision, and to recognize your influence. The contrast between your steady achievements and their erratic attempts at destruction creates a narrative where you naturally emerge as the authority, the standard, and the example of what true capability looks like. So let them talk. Let them rail against you, because each syllable is advertising your excellence. Every effort to discredit you serves as free promotion, spreading your name, your impact, and your story further than you could have done on your own. The more they try to drag you down, the higher you rise. And the truth is, there's nothing they can do to stop it. Number 10. You're forcing people to re-examine who they call a leader. You're not just achieving success, you're forcing people to confront a truth they've been avoiding for years. Your presence, your consistency, and your results act like a mirror, reflecting the reality of leadership that many had forgotten or never recognized. Before you arrived, people were settling for mediocrity, applauding the wrong voices, and mistaking noise for authority. Your example exposes that, and it's uncomfortable for everyone who had grown loyal to the imposters. The ones who were in charge before you thrived because no one questioned them. People followed out of habit, fear, or confusion, and the system rewarded performance that looked impressive but was hollow at its core. Then you show up and do everything differently. You operate with integrity, competence, and purpose. You don't just perform a role, you embody it. And when people see the difference, they start to question why they ever celebrated the others in the first place. This disruption isn't subtle. Every action you take, every standard you raise, and every success you achieve becomes a benchmark against which everyone else is measured. The ones who thought they were untouchable suddenly look inadequate. People realize that leadership isn't about holding a title, making noise, or maintaining appearances. It's about results, accountability, and vision, and that realization spreads fast. What makes this so powerful is that you didn't have to force it. You didn't need to attack anyone, call them out, or prove them wrong publicly. The mere act of showing up and being exceptional does all the work. Your consistency challenges old loyalties and outdated standards, and it forces people to reconsider who deserves their respect, attention, and trust. By the time they understand the truth, your impact is already permanent. People can't unsee what you've shown them. Their perception of leadership, authority, and excellence has been reset, and there's no going back to the way things were. You've become the standard, the benchmark, and the undeniable example of what real leadership looks like, and everyone else's shortcomings are now visible in sharp contrast. Number 11. Their fall was written the moment they chose deception over truth. Their downfall wasn't caused by you. It was inevitable the moment they decided to build their success on deception instead of truth. Every lie they told, every corner they cut, every compromise they made to appear stronger than they were, laid the foundation for the collapse they're now experiencing. You didn't create their failure. You simply became the undeniable evidence that the path they chose was unsustainable. The more they tried to maintain their facade, the more fragile it became, and now it's cracking in plain sight. What makes this so striking is how obvious the contrast is between you and them. You operate on integrity, consistency, and authenticity. Your actions align with your words, and your results reinforce your principles. That kind of alignment isn't flashy, but it's powerful in a way they can't compete with. The world notices it, and people instinctively gravitate toward it because it's reliable, credible, and real. Meanwhile, their deceit was built on temporary illusions, and once the public's attention turned toward substance over show, their structure couldn't hold. Their choices weren't minor mistakes. They were deliberate decisions to prioritize short-term advantage over lasting credibility. Every attempt to manipulate, hide, or twist the truth was like a nail in their own coffin. You didn't strike first, you didn't ambush them, and you didn't sabotage them. Your victories, your rise, your growing influence simply illuminated the weakness that was already there. Integrity always wins in the long run, and your presence is proof that no amount of cunning, charm, or smoke and mirrors can replace it. The lesson here is brutal but simple. People fall not because others attack them, but because of the paths they choose. Your role is not to punish. It's to be the reflection of what was possible if honesty and authenticity had been prioritized. You are the living, undeniable counterexample to their deception. Their collapse isn't personal, it's structural. It's the natural consequence of choosing to build on lies while you build on truth. And now, as their empire of falsehood crumbles, the world sees the reality clearly. They fail not because you were aggressive or ruthless, but because the foundation they trusted was never strong enough. You merely provided the light to reveal what was always there, the superiority of truth over deception. Number 12. You are not afraid to be hated by the wrong crowd. You were chosen because you don't bend to public opinion when it's rooted in ignorance, jealousy, or self-interest. Most people fear being disliked, criticized, or misunderstood, so they shrink, compromise, or avoid taking bold action. That fear keeps systems of corruption intact because no one dares to challenge them. You, however, aren't afraid of that. You stand firm, even when the loudest voices are the ones cheering for the wrong side. That ability to withstand judgment and remain unwavering is exactly why you were selected for this role. Criticism from the wrong crowd is inevitable when you disrupt the established order. Those benefiting from the corrupt system will scream, smear, and manipulate perception to protect their control. But here's the thing. Their outrage is a signal, not a deterrent. Every insult, every attempt to delegitimize you, proves the strength of your influence and the threat you pose to their illusion. Your immunity to their hatred is a weapon because it allows you to operate in full clarity without distraction or fear. The collapse of any corrupt system requires someone willing to endure discomfort, criticism, and even personal attacks without flinching. You were chosen precisely because you can do that. While others fold under pressure, change stalls, and corruption persists. But when someone like you shows up, capable of taking hits without losing focus or moral grounding, the entire structure trembles. Your resilience amplifies your power because it exposes the weakness of those who cannot survive scrutiny. Being disliked by the wrong crowd is not a setback, it's a badge of validation. It means you're challenging the norms, confronting lies, and forcing change. Every negative reaction directed at you is proof that you're shaking the foundations, that you're stepping into spaces others feared, and that you're fulfilling the purpose you were chosen for. Your ability to stand in the storm of criticism ensures that no external pressure can derail you. You are untouchable not because you are immune to challenge, but because you refuse to let it control your direction, slow your momentum, or compromise your integrity. That's why you were chosen, because the one capable of dismantling corruption is never the one who seeks comfort, approval, or easy popularity. You endure, and in doing so, you guarantee change. Number 13. You are the evidence that legacy is built in silence, then announced by impact. You didn't need to announce your intentions, wave a flag, or demand attention to prove your worth. Legacy isn't built on noise, it's built on consistent, undeniable action over time. While others were busy talking about what they would do, planning how they would look impressive, or trying to control the narrative with words, you were quietly doing the work. Every effort, every decision, every disciplined move added weight to what you were creating, and now the results are impossible to ignore. The beauty of this is that people who once refused to see your value are now forced to confront it. Boardrooms that ignored you, communities that overlooked you, even critics who dismissed your presence. They are all registering the impact of your actions. They may have scoffed at the quiet effort, thinking nothing would come of it. But the reality is that your silence was your strength. It allowed you to focus, to perfect, and to act in ways that words alone could never accomplish. Legacy is never about announcements. It's about proof. When you let results speak for themselves, the story writes itself, and it's far more convincing than anything spoken in haste. People remember outcomes, not promises. They remember who delivered when it counted, not who claimed they would. Your impact is now shaping perception, rewiring expectations, and resetting standards. The space around you is being transformed quietly but profoundly, and the people who doubted you are now witnesses to your competence and authority. This kind of legacy is dangerous to those who thrived on attention without substance. They relied on noise to mask emptiness. But your results expose the gap between performance and reality. What you built quietly now speaks louder than anything they could have shouted. Your work carries weight, permanence, and credibility. It doesn't beg for recognition, it commands it naturally, forcing acknowledgement even from those who swore they would never give it. By acting with restraint, focus, and consistency, you've created a force that can't be ignored. The world doesn't need your explanations, excuses, or speeches. It needs your results. And those results are your declaration, your announcement, and your proof. You are living evidence that legacy isn't about noise. It's about silent, relentless impact that becomes undeniable over time. Number 14. Their end is just the side effect. Your real mission is building what lasts. Their downfall isn't the mission, it's just the natural consequence of what you were sent to do. Too many people get caught up thinking that taking someone down is the goal, but that's short-sighted. Your real assignment has always been bigger than a single victory or a single enemy. It's about creating a foundation strong enough to hold truth, justice, and progress long after the chaos has settled. The collapse of those who relied on deceit is simply the side effect of you doing your job correctly. When people focus only on beating someone, they miss the bigger picture. They see destruction as power, but real power is creation. You're not here to replace one flawed leader with another, or to trade one form of chaos for another. You're here to clear the way for systems, structures, and environments that can endure, where integrity matters, where effort is recognized, and where manipulation has no foothold. That's why your work carries a different weight. It's generational, strategic, and irreversible. Destroying them isn't heroic. What's heroic is showing up consistently, maintaining your standards, and letting the consequences of your excellence do the work. Every action you take, every principle you uphold, and every boundary you enforce is a brick in the new foundation you're building. And as that foundation strengthens, the people who relied on shortcuts and deception are exposed, inevitably falling away because they cannot survive in the environment you've created. The beauty of this is that your focus never needs to be on hatred, vengeance, or even their failures. The more you concentrate on building what lasts, the more permanent your impact becomes. Your discipline, your vision, and your integrity do what no amount of scheming could. They shift the landscape itself. People will remember your influence not because you tore someone down, but because you made a space where real progress could thrive. Their end is the echo, not the headline. You are the architect, the innovator, and the force creating a new standard. By the time anyone realizes the depth of your work, the old systems will already be dismantled, and your legacy of truth and progress will be standing tall. This is why you were chosen, not for destruction, but for creation, and the results are undeniable. Chosen one, what you've just witnessed is not a story of mere victory. It's a revelation of purpose. Every move you've made, every standard you've set, and every storm you've weathered has been part of a design far bigger than anyone around you could comprehend. You weren't placed in this world to follow the rules of those who manipulate, cheat, or deceive. You were chosen to rise, to disrupt, and to redefine the very definition of power, authority, and legacy. From exposing hollow systems to forcing others to see truth, your path has been relentless, precise, and unstoppable. You've shown that patience is a weapon, authenticity is undeniable, and integrity always outworks deception. Your rise has done more than highlight their failures. It's reprogrammed the expectations of everyone who witnesses it. The names that once echoed falsely in power are now reminders of the inevitable consequences of deceit. While your name travels far and wide, not because you shouted it, but because your impact speaks louder than any words ever could. You didn't compete in their game. You redefined the arena. You weren't seeking validation. You were building legacy. You weren't breaking them. You were clearing the way for what lasts. And now, as the world watches, it becomes impossible to deny the truth. You are the measure, the standard, and the force that shifts reality itself. Remember this. Your authority is recognized, not granted. Your patience is your power. Your example is changing the way people see leadership. Your work is permanent. And the collapse of false rulers is nothing more than a side effect of the mission you were truly sent to accomplish. So keep moving, keep building, keep standing firm. The world will continue to notice, question, and follow because the force of your presence cannot be ignored and the legacy you're creating is unshakable. You were chosen, you are unstoppable, and the story is just getting started. If this message hit you at the core, don't let it stop here. Subscribe to the channel now to stay connected with the truth, the strategies, and the revelations that most people will never see coming. Hit that like button to show your power. Drop a comment to share your story or insight. Your voice matters. And share this video with anyone who needs to witness what it really means to rise above the noise. The world is watching, and your action today amplifies the impact of everything we're building together. God bless you.